Now, since the end of the Second World War, the American dollar has been the backbone of global finance. But that dominance appears to be fast slipping, and leading the efforts are the BRICS nations, a group that is accused by American President Donald Trump of harboring anti-American policies. Now, last year, Donald Trump had threatened 100% tariffs on BRICS nations if they ditched the US dollar. And this year, he has threatened to slap 10% additional tariffs on countries that align with the BRICS nations. De-dollarization is Trump's and the US's biggest nightmare. Now, Russia and China are stepping up their efforts to build alternative financial and payment systems, while India's Unified Payments Interface, one of the most advanced digital systems globally, is being extended to neighboring nations. Now, China is pushing its own cross-border digital payment platforms. These moves are part of a broader shift as countries are seeking to reduce dependence on the US dollar. And amongst the BRICS nations, China and Russia have initiated efforts to settle more trade in local currencies, while India is yet to make its stance clear, but adding to Trump's woes is the defining image from the SCO summit. Modi, Xi and Putin huddled together in an apparent exchange of assurances. All three of them are part of the BRICS, signaling greater cooperation between them. A disheartened Trump lamented that the United States had lost India and Russia to the deepest, darkest China. But within hours, the president made a U-turn and called Prime Minister Modi a good friend and emphasized that the United States and India have a special relationship and there are moments of disagreement. Now, Trump's comments stand in sharp contrast to his earlier statements, where he has called India a dead economy and has even levied 50% tariffs, which is the highest globally along with Brazil. Additionally, voices within the Trump administration, the likes of Peter Navarro and Scott Bessent and even Howard Lutnick, have come down very heavily in rhetoric against India. The Trump administration's moves against India have received sharp criticism both at home and abroad. The Democrats have accused Donald Trump of alienating a key strategic ally, and many within Trump's own base feel very conflicted about the strident rhetoric against India. The former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley, has been the most vocal, urging the Trump administration to treat India like a prized friend, prized free and democratic partner that it is. Globally, Europe is nudging Washington not to lose sight of the big picture. The Finnish President Alexander Stubbs has pushed the United States for a more dignified approach to foreign policy in the global south and India, or else risk losing the game altogether. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has also questioned the tariffs on India, saying that the United States can't talk to India like that, in a snub to the United States. The Japan's top trade negotiator has cancelled a planned visit to Washington on a day when Prime Minister Modi landed in Tokyo for the Japan-India annual summit. Tokyo will also be pouring in $67.9 billion of investments in India over the span of the next 10 years. Washington is now realizing that India is indispensable. From Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to European Union Chief von der Leyen, both have been in touch with Prime Minister Modi over the Ukraine war. Now, Ursula von der Leyen even dialed Narendra Modi during a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing to discuss the Ukraine war. The latest to reach out is the French President Emmanuel Macron, who hosted the Coalition of the Willing, in which Trump too was a part clearly, and India's importance on the global stage, of course, cannot be denied. And American strategic interests dictate that India cannot be alienated. The indispensability of India as a force is, of course, becoming pretty clear to the United States from all quarters. Now, despite the upheaval, New Delhi has signaled that it has enough strategic partners to lean on and will stand up to American pressure to secure its own interests, making it clear that India is indispensable, undeniable and inalienable. But Washington still has time to repair its strained ties with New Delhi, and a start can be made with a consistent and a durable policy towards India. For a president who is known to be impulsive, a reversal in the bipartisan consensus in Washington is imperative. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Professor Andrew Latham, who's a foreign affairs expert. Professor Latham, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on WION. Now, Donald Trump's policy vis-a-vis India and also with the other BRICS nation, it smacks, a lot of people would say, of arrogance, and some would say it is a foreign policy that seems to have lost its direction. How do you view what Donald Trump has been doing with respect to India and the BRICS nations?
Well, I think it's quite obvious that his contributions, shall we say, are counterproductive in terms of America's interests. The United States has no interest in alienating India, to be sure, some of the other BRICS nations as well. And so at the level of appearances and rhetoric and oratory, what we have is Donald Trump working against the medium to long-term American interests. The more hopeful side of the story, of course, is that the deep state, the blob, the foreign policy establishment, whatever you want to call it in the United States, remains very committed to a partnership with India, both economic and geopolitical. It has no interest in pushing India where India doesn't want to go, which is into the embrace of China. The optics of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit notwithstanding, that's not happening. As your viewers know, no doubt, Prime Minister Modi did not attend the Victory Day celebrations the following day in Beijing. And so the signaling there is pretty clear on the Indian part. India will, as it always has, pursue its national interest. Sometimes those align with China, sometimes they align with Russia, and sometimes they align with the United States. And that's simply the nature of India's strategic autonomy and multi-alignment grand strategy.
If one were to look at it purely even from the American perspective, the one thing the United States should not do is to try and bring nations such as China, Russia, and India together. But Donald Trump, with his rhetoric and through his policies, is ensuring and pushing that Beijing, Moscow, and New Delhi, in fact, come together in a much more stronger manner. What do you think is guiding Donald Trump's foreign policy here?
Well, he has a bit of a temper about him. So when it comes to tariffs, for example, he browbeat the Japanese and they rolled over and gave in, and the South Koreans and the Europeans. He got his way. And then when he tried that with Prime Minister Modi in India, he didn't get his way. And so he did what people like Donald Trump do, which is to pull out a bigger stick and make more threats and make more noises, always with the short term perspective in sight and not with the medium to long term. Now, Donald Trump is not completely geopolitically inept. He has antennae that are out, and he realizes, I think, what he's done, which is why he's backpedaled significantly in the last few days, not only just initially softening his rhetoric, but now talking about India as an indispensable partner and as a friend, and how much he, at the moment, has some disagreements with Prime Minister Modi, but genuinely loves Prime Minister Modi. So I think we see a bit of a pivot, a bit of an about face, as it were, on the part of the president, because either he or his immediate circle of advisors have come to the conclusion that alienating India is not a sound strategic move.
Right. My final question to you, Professor Latham, is this. De-dollarization is something that's being talked about a lot. The one thing that the United States does not want to happen is for de-dollarization to become a reality. Do you think Donald Trump is now setting out the steps that are needed to ensure that the rest of the global economy is tied closely with that of the US dollar? Or is he, because of the fact that he's alienating his friends, in many ways hastening the process of de-dollarization?
Yeah, I don't think Donald Trump is helping, but he's not the cause of this. The American system, the dollar-based system put in place at Bretton Woods in 1944 and throughout the Cold War and the post-Cold War era, has been fraying for some time. It's falling apart. The WTO isn't doing what it's meant to do. Even the United Nations is a bit of a failure on many levels. And so it's not surprising that the cornerstone of that arrangement, the dollar as the global reserve currency, is beginning to fall apart. Donald Trump's not the cause of that, but he's accelerating it considerably. I would note too that India is not in favor, as a matter of policy, of de-dollarization, and they've resisted Russian and Chinese efforts to move in that direction, to the point where Beijing has now backed off de-dollarization. But that's short to medium term. In the medium to long term, the dollar, I think, will not be the global reserve currency anymore, and alternative arrangements will be put in place.
All right. Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Professor Latham, for joining us with that perspective there.
You're welcome.